Okay,
Now
now
it is. Now we're live.
Now we see it.
Now we're live.
now we are live on Facebook. Okay.
Very good.
Welcome everybody to our live stream. I'm Andrea Anderson in Carolina Beach, North Carolina.
And I'm Barbara Hemphill in Raleigh, North Carolina. And in the background, you can see downtown Raleigh. So welcome. We're so glad you joined us.
It is beautiful. And then we've got Judy Girton in my top left. Judy, where are you? Tell everybody.
Representing the great state of Massachusetts.
With lots and lots of snow outside.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. And then Mom, you are?
I'm in near Morehead City, North Carolina.
That's
just
right.
up the coast from Andrea.
Yep. Just a little bit away. And then we have Amy Daly on the bottom of our screen. And Amy is where?
I'm in Durham, North Carolina.
Excellent. So 4 of us from North Carolina here on, and then we've got Judy.
There it goes.
We've got our New Englander. So what are we doing here? I'm just going to say a quick introduction, and then I'm going to be quiet and let Barbara and Judy just kind of tackle this conversation. Judy Girton is one of our certified productive environment specialists here with Productive Environment Institute. And she recently wrote an article entitled, what was the title of your article, Judy? Do you have it there?
Marie Kondo and the KonMari Method, is it for you?
And I have to say that article has gotten a lot of attention. We had, as far as, I don't know if you guys that are listening know what email open rates are like or what they are, but Judy, we have our highest email open rate with that email that went out.
Yeah, I do pay attention in the training.
Yeah, exactly. Good job. Yes, so very popular topic.
It is.
And I think a lot of people were interested in hearing what Barbara Hemphill has to say. Another popular organizing system that people hear about is called GTD, Getting Things Done. And people always want to know what Barbara Hemphill has to say about that, because those of you that are watching, maybe you're seeing us live on Facebook as well. And if you don't know who Barbara Hemphill is, she is one of the founding members of the entire organizing industry over 40 years ago and still going strong. And so everybody wants to know what Barbara has to say about these things. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Barbara, and you and Judy to just kick this conversation off.
Great. Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to Judy for writing the article. Because it was extremely well done. When I was president of the National Association of Professional Organizers, my theme was Together We Are Better, which has been the theme of my business and of the CPS program and really of my life, because I believe that one of the challenges in America especially is that we were raised, and growing up on a farm, it specifically was true, we were raised up with this, I can do it myself, sort of thing. I don't need help. I need to be independent. And I don't think we were designed to be that way. As a Christian, in the Bible, it talks about the body of Christ, the eye's not a hand and the foot is not an arm, or those aren't the right appendages, but the idea is right. And when I was with the organizers, I would say it's not about getting a bigger piece of the pie. It's about making the pie bigger. And I'm thrilled that the KonMari Method is getting such publicity, because it's raising people's consciousness to really think about it and have conversations about it. And I believe that our world desperately needs help getting rid of the clutter. I mean, it is just because of the society in which we live. And I'll give it, I was selling this in a group that I was in today. There are 2 things that I just bought off of the internet. I mean, I'm like everybody else. I see a marketing message on the internet and there's some, it's like, oh, wow, that looks really awesome. And one of them was a pillow. I have a problem with one of my hips. And the PT person told me that if I would put a pillow between my legs, that would really help. And there was one that was advertised, and oh, that was great. It was $22 or something like that. So I got it. Well, it didn't really work. And then the other one was a thing I saw that was a little, years and years ago, I had a silver disc on my keychain that had little things that were like screwdrivers that came from the Nebraska National Guard. And I just loved it. I must have carried it for 2 decades. And then I lost it. It fell off or something like that. And I saw this one advertised. Oh, it looks so cool. And I ordered it. It must have weighed, I don't know, 2 ounces or something. I mean, nothing you'd put on your keychain. And I literally threw it in the recycle bin or the trash bin, because it's like, I'm not even giving this to anybody, because it's like, it doesn't really work. And it's just one of the examples of why we have so much clutter. And so I don't care who it does, who does it to help us get rid of it. And I had a client recently that had hired 3 organizing consultants in 2 different states over a period of number of years and spent several $1,000s, and it hadn't worked. And in fact, she felt worse because she felt like, oh, even a professional couldn't help me. I am so disorganized that even a professional couldn't help me. And that wasn't the problem at all. The problem was it wasn't the right professional for her. It doesn't mean it isn't the right one for somebody else. I asked her at the end of our time, we did a productivity quick start together, which is a 4-hour service. And I asked her at the end what had been different about what we did, because she was very happy. And she said there were 2 things. One was, she said, you really taught me that it's about the decision making. And if you've been around long, you know that clutter is postponed decisions has been what I've been preaching for 40 years. And she hadn't really gotten the fact that that was the issue. And then the second thing was, she said, but what really helped was you kept asking me, what will you do? And that's such an important factor. And so the KonMari technique works beautifully for many people. I just was at a networking group today. A woman there said she binged on the new Netflix TV show, went home and just did her whole house. It's like fabulous. That's absolutely fabulous. So I'm just, Judy, I really appreciate your writing that article. I thought you did it in a really great way. And I love the chance to talk about it. So Judy, why don't you jump in with your thoughts about this whole process?
Well, I couldn't open Facebook or LinkedIn or my email without seeing some reference to it. And like you, I've had a lot of discussions with people about the KonMari method and what do I think about it? And isn't it this and isn't it that? And I said, I think it's great because it opens up the conversation about organizing, about productivity consultants, about what we do, what we can do. And, just the same as with the David Allen Getting Things Done method. They're methods. I mean, what do they have in common? They're all 5 steps.
Oh, I hadn't even thought about that. Oh, yeah, I hadn't even thought about that.
I mean, David Allen, I call it the C core, the capture, collect, organize, reflect, and engage. Those are his steps. You have the 5 steps. Yeah. And the KonMari method divides up what you do with your stuff into those 5 different, all your clothing, all your books, all your papers, all your miscellany, which I think is a weird term, and all your mementos. And, so I was like, well, that's, I was making a little chart to look at what was different and what was the same. And
of course you were, Judy.
Of course, right. I'm a researcher.
Of course you were making a
chart. I'm a researcher, right? So, but I thought it was just really, really interesting. And in some way or another, everyone's coming to a vision. What is your vision? And I think that's key. And I think that the language that you hear, whatever speaks to you. I mean, when I first heard about Barbara, it was before I was ever in the program. It was, when I was starting 18 years ago, and it spoke to me then. It speaks to me now. Was I excited by the show? I have to say, I did clean out my closet the day after I watched a couple episodes. Marie Kondo, but I did not go and find all of my clothes and put them in a pile. Because I've been managing it as I go along, so I don't really need to do that. And I think that the really key thing that we do in our program is the sustain your success.
That's exactly. I think that's really, and that's the part. And I actually had a very interesting thing happen with a client this week that I think is very appropriate. This was a gentleman that I had actually done a productivity quick start for. Again, it was a 4-hour thing. And he didn't have a whole lot. I mean, when I went to his office, it wasn't nearly as bad as he made it sound. He made it sound like it was just horrible. Well, it wasn't horrible. In 4 hours, we had everything put away. So then I was following up with him. It wasn't quite 30 days later. He says, I have more clutter than I want. And so we talked about it and we came to a conclusion. And I never really put it quite in these terms before, but I think it's true. one was, how much clutter are you willing to tolerate? I mean, he's been diagnosed with ADHD, and those of us who've been diagnosed with ADHD, the chances that we're ever going to be clutter free, I mean, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
But you have to have, what's the level that you're willing to tolerate? For me, it's a week. My timeline is 1 week. So my goal is that on Friday afternoon, I get the office put back together again, because I want it to be nice over the weekend, because I feel better. So that was one thing. And then the second thing is, because when we talk about it, it's like he was too tired to put the clutter away. You know, it's like, oh, it's boring and I don't want to do it. And so I told him a story, which is an absolute true story. When we first moved into our house that we're in now in Raleigh, I had this idea that because I was an organizing consultant, the kitchen should be clean before I went to bed. So I would be in the kitchen, you know, washing up the dishes and madder than a wet hornet, you know, just mad because my husband's watching TV and I really don't want to be cleaning up the kitchen. I'm feeling like Cinderella. And one night I said, I'm going to bed. I'll deal with it tomorrow. Well, the next morning I got up and I put the coffee on. And while the coffee was brewing, I started cleaning up and realized I didn't mind. I thought, wait a minute, this is huge. And so then I said to my client, you want to figure out what level of clutter you'll tolerate. So in my office, it's a week's worth. And then the second one is, when are you the most energized in order to do this? And he said, well, it would work for me better in the morning. And that's what happens for me. If I can clean up in the morning, it kind of energizes me and then energizes me I feel good about myself because I've done that. Now I'm willing to do the things that I really need to do. So I'd never really thought of it in those terms before. But then this afternoon, I met with a lawyer about her email and wanted to clean up. And we applied the same principles. What level of clutter are you willing to tolerate? And then when are you going to clean it up? You know, like how much time are you willing to spend on it and what time? And I think that's really key. And that's to the 5th step of our 5-step process, which is sustain your success. And that is where most people fail because, one, they don't do it long enough to make it a habit. And somebody said to me at a table, the club here had a thing today on paper planners. And so I just came because I wanted to hear what everybody was saying. And one of the questions we talked about was how, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, I don't know. What are we talking about? Why did I do that?
Finding the right energy and the right
Tolerance of
time.
clutter.
I don't know. It just went away. Oh, well,
But
my
I
mother would say
do
it must
that
not
with-
have-
I
my
do
mother
that
must have
with
said it
clients.
must not be important. I don't know. It'll come back again. So
Yeah. Well, I do that with clients. I ask them, you know, what kind of energy do you need to do this particular activity? If you can't sit in your chair and your mind is wandering, that's not the time that you should be doing your financials, or you should be doing heavy duty writing that you need to propose a project. I mean, there are other things that you can do. And so trying to find those times of day, because we all have those biological rhythms that help us to anchor our day. You know, if you ask me to do something at 4 o'clock, I'm going to get it done because that's when my brain is going, oh yeah, I can do that now. But if you ask me to do that same thing at 7 o'clock in the morning, probably not so much.
and I'm exactly the opposite. So most of the blogs that I write, most of them are written very early in the moment, you know, and 4 o'clock, I'm winding down. Now I do get a second wind after that. So I can like have something to eat and whatever, and then get a second wind and say, okay, I can do something then. But I just saw.
So,
I know. Jim, thank you, Jim. Jim just put a note. He says, Barbara, you were heading for how long it takes to make a habit stick. Thank you.
thanks, Jim.
Thank you. And that's exactly right, because we were talking about choosing calendars and what would happen, because this was about calendars or planners. And I said, one of the things that I observed over and over is people would pick a calendar, and then they'd try it for a little while, but they didn't try it long enough to get it to be a habit. And I've heard 28 days makes a habit. As far as I'm concerned, it makes a habit for 28 days. I mean, 28 days is not enough for me. And I mean, like when I first started using the Swift file, I know it took me 3 months, and now I couldn't live without it, but it took me a long time to get into that habit. So I think how long and then the other reason is that when you try something and it doesn't work, you need to analyze why it didn't work so that you know what to do differently for the next one. Otherwise, you just keep trying new things. And all of us as organizing consultants have gone into people's offices where they've tried this one and this one and this one, and none of them worked, but they're not going to get the right one because they've never analyzed what it was that they liked or didn't like. And as we were talking about it at the planner session we did today, there is no perfect calendar. They do not exist, or any other software. I mean, Andrea, you know how we've dealt with that with all the different platforms, and everyone's got pros and cons. And so you have to have if you go back to our first step in our process of state your vision, it's like, okay, if this were perfect, this is what it would do. It would do all of these things. And then you find the tool that gets the most of those things. And then you figure the workarounds for others. And I think that's where organizing consultants are really a great help. That's figuring out the workarounds. Because so often people get something and it doesn't work. And instead of figuring out how to adapt it, they abandon it. Whereas if they hired an organizing consultant, they can say, oh, I'm using this and it's working for this, but it's not for this. We're great at workarounds because we've had the advantage of trying so many things ourselves and working with so many clients through the years. So if we don't know it ourselves, we can get on our network and ask somebody else. You know, I'm always asking some CPS something about, oh, I'm working with this client and they're doing this and I don't know about it. How can you help?
Right.
So it's definitely together we're better.
Absolutely. But I think we even take tastes of each other method as well. I mean, at the core, I'm a 5-step girl, I always will be. But when people are trying to do projects, teaching them David Allen's next action thinking is incredibly helpful.
Absolutely.
You can't do the whole project when you sit down today. You can only do the next step. So what is the next step? And put that in your action plan.
Marie Kondo, the thing that I learned from her, she put a little bit different angle, which I use, makes a lot of sense, is organizing a whole category at one time. And a good example of that would be books. And so many times people will organize the books in a particular room. Well, that doesn't work because you're not getting the whole picture. But if you don't want to dump all the books in one place, then what you can do is say, okay, I'm going to go collect all the business books from all the different places. And then I'm going to organize all the business books. So even though I've been doing this for 40 years, every time I read somebody new, another organizer, I learn something. So that's why every day we keep getting better, is because we keep having more experiences and learn from other people. So.
I think that's one thing that she does exceptionally well, is show people just the volume, because people tend to say, oh, it's really not so bad. It's really not so bad. And because they're only in one room. But truthfully, if you bring all of your things together and you have to face the reality, I've looked on the show, when you look at those mountains and my heart sinks for them.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine what it's like to be them. And then to hear that they spent a whole week going through their clothes, or a whole week going through their books. But they should go through their books because there's usually money in there.
Yeah. I was with an attorney today, and she had hired me, or was thinking about hiring me, and I didn't even know if I could help her. So I said, let's work together for an hour, because I really don't know that I can do what you want to do. And I said, I have a feeling that what you are expecting of yourself is not an organizing issue. It's literally, and I feel so many people think that if they just got organized, they could do all of that. And it is a lie. And what came out of our working together for this 1 hour was her actually realizing that was the issue, that it really wasn't an organizing issue. It was an issue that she was trying to do something that is humanly impossible. And the Marie Kondo method of bringing all things together helps you figure that out. You can't change what you don't measure, and that method helps to measure. So it's very valuable from that perspective.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I think it's great, like you said, Barbara, that it's kind of raising the awareness. Having that show is raising awareness, and there are thousands and thousands of organizing consultants around the world, that have been here, that are here. They're in those of you that are listening, they're in your neighborhoods, they're in your towns, they're in your cities. You don't have, if you watch that show, you don't have to think, oh, if only she could come to my house and help me. You have people that can help you. So I do want to encourage you to reach out. We have our own team of certified productive environment specialists. And I want to invite all of you to join our network. It's a free place to come and network with specialists, our specialists, as well as other specialists. So you can go to ProductiveEnvironmentNetwork.com and you can come in there and just listen, just look, just watch the articles. Barbara publishes an article every week. We have our tips from the pros. Judy's article was published last week. So, don't be afraid to ask for help. They're out there. They're out there.
And also, I think one of the things that is helpful is for you to look at what would have to happen. Like what has to happen for you to feel like hiring someone was really worth the effort, so that you could really measure it. And there needs to be an end goal, because what happens in organizing so often is when organizers work on an hourly rate, which many of them do, what happens, and I've seen it many, many times, is they'll go in and say, oh, I want to organize this room or this particular project. And then while they're working on it, they'll find another project and another project and another project, but it becomes so big and overwhelming. So one of the things that we strongly encourage people to do is package pricing, because there's one of the things I introduced many years ago that I still believe in extremely strongly is that there are 3 skill levels required to get and stay organized. And we call it methodology, mechanics, and maintenance. Methodology is the highest level of organizing. It's going in and looking at the big picture, looking at the vision, figuring out where to start, how to start. That's what takes the most experience, and it's the most expensive. It's kind of like the story of the farmer who hired this consultant to come out and fix some machine that was broken, and the consultant came in and turned a screw or something like that, and then sent him a bill for $3,000. And the farmer nearly had a heart attack. It's like, you were here for 5 minutes. He says, yeah, but I went to school for 30 years to learn which screw to turn in what direction. And so it's kind of like that overall, you don't need much of it. You may only need 15 minutes. I mean, I can go into a room, and our CPSs can go into a room and in 15 minutes and see very quickly what needs to be done. So that's methodology. The second one is mechanics. So that's like, okay, how many times do we talk to people in sales? They need a CRM. Oh, I know I've got to have a database. I've got to have customer. And it's like, oh, there's so many out there, and I tried that one and this one didn't work and all that. Well, the methodology would be picking which one. Then the mechanics is, okay, now how do we set it up? Because the majority of people that use a CRM don't take advantage of what it'll do. They're not using it properly, and they're not taking advantage. It's a tool they're not using. So that's the mechanics of it. And so that's the next level. And then the third level is the maintenance. Somebody has got to get those business cards and those Post-it notes and those scraps of paper in there. Well, the problem with hourly pricing with consulting is that a consultant is doing all 3 of those levels. They're doing methodology, mechanics, and maintenance. They usually charge something that's kind of in that middle area, which means they're not getting paid well enough at all for the years it took them to figure that out. But they're overcharging for the maintenance stuff. And the client eventually says, I can't afford to keep doing this. And so then the client goes away. The other thing I've seen many, many times, I would say most times, I would say most organizing consultants would tell you that people will hire a consultant enough to take the pain away, but not enough to really solve the problem. which is another reason that package pricing is so valuable, because you can build in some things there to make sure that the client keeps moving forward. So organizing is not a job that you finish and it's done. Organizing is a lifestyle. It is something we will always be doing. We will always need it. But when you hire someone to help you, you want to find out, are you just hiring somebody to do the job? In which case they're going to have to do it over and over and over and over because it's not going to stay organized. Or are you hiring someone to transfer the knowledge to you so that either you will know how to do it or you can hire someone to do it who's less expensive than an organizing consultant?
Right.
So many times we can work with somebody where, let's take the database, for example. You could literally hire the grade schooler from next door to put the data in the database. So it's all about together we're better, and it's all about figuring out what you need and what you will do, and then finding the people that will support your style. And it's the reason I love doing this even after 40 years, because everybody's different. Every person is different, and the same people are in different situations. So there are people I worked with. I just worked with somebody recently that I worked with 30 years ago. And then things changed. And it's like, okay, 30 years ago, I used you. I want to use you again. So it's like we keep every day and every way we're getting better and better. We just keep finding new ways to serve clients. And so we're glad to have everybody on this call, and we'd love to help you if you need help.
I'm gonna post a link to we have something called a Productive Environment Scorecard that Barbara developed many moons ago. And I'm going to post it. I just posted it for everybody here in the Zoom meeting, and I'm going to post it on Facebook as well. So if you guys want to see how you score on your productivity systems, go ahead and fill that scorecard out. It'll come to us, and we can see how we can help you and put you in touch with a certified productive environment specialist. And also be sure to join us in Productive Environment Network. And we will be back here. Barbara, we'll be back here, right? The 4th Tuesday of February.
Yes.
So make sure you join the network, ProductiveEnvironmentNetwork.com, so that you will be notified of what our topic is for next month. And you can also send us questions. Let us know what you want us to talk about as well.
We could tell you what it was if we knew, but we really don't know, because Barbara would never know anything 30 days in advance.
We'll wait and see and watch and see what you guys are asking, what questions are being asked, what discussions are being had, and then we'll have our topic. And
if there's something you want us to discuss, if there's something that you're in, don't hesitate to reach out and say, hey, let's talk about such and such. In fact, somebody today at one of the groups I was at said, would you do a class on communication with clients? Like, how do you organize communication with clients? And she was talking about sending handwritten notes and sending emails and sending Christmas cards and all that. She said, she's a consultant, and she works with companies. So she works with things. She's, I just have such a trouble. She said, can you just teach a class on that? Well, that's something we should talk about. So I just said, you need a process. There are many, many, many ways to do it. You need a process, and you need the right tools. And she said, I didn't send Christmas cards this year, and I felt really badly because I didn't get it done. So
I didn't send Christmas cards.
You can always send New Year's cards.
I was going to say, I didn't send Christmas cards, and I didn't feel badly. I got Mom's Christmas card, and it was a New Year's card too, right, Mom?
Yeah, it was both.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
We're just wanting to help people accomplish their work and enjoy their lives. So whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. The last thing I do want to say, if you are listening and you are a organizing consultant, or you've thought about wanting to become one but didn't know how, go to becomeaspecialist.com, becomeaspecialist.com, and you can check out our specialist program. Okay?
Well, and let me just say too, if you know anybody, if you know someone who's been laid off, somebody who's been in the administrative field, the managerial field in a company, and they've been laid off and they're looking for new options, it's really a fabulous opportunity. So we'd love to talk to them.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you. And I think we want more articles from Judy too. So
absolutely.
Keep them coming.
All right.
All right.
Have a great night, everyone.
Thanks, Mom, for being on with us. Bye, everybody. Signing off.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.